Committee to order. Supervisor Zhang asked to be excused, so if we can reflect that in the minutes. Are there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Anybody that would like to make a public comment? Anybody would like to make a public comment? If not, what are the wishes of the committee relative to the minutes from the July 6th meeting? Moved by Supervisor McEwen,
Second.
seconded by Chair Gibbs. Any discussion?
There are meeting minutes for this 6th meeting and for the joint meeting, but the joint meeting was not on the agenda, so those will be done next time. So you are just doing the 6th, July 6th.
I noticed that in the packet too. So we'll defer the approval of that. Anything else on the minutes from July 6th?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Gibbs. If not, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of the July 6th meeting will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously. Next, educational presentations, outcome monitoring reports, value proposition of new ERP system, and project update. So Christy, I'll turn it to you, and you'll probably turn it over to someone else.
What I'll do right now is I'm going to show you it was in your packet, but I'm going to show you the PowerPoint. What it does, we put it under the value proposition for buying a new ERP system. And really what it is that we're looking at asking for a replacement of our current financial system with a full ERP system, which includes not only financials, but project management, grant management, and a human resource section. And we are looking at one vendor in particular, but I think this PowerPoint that you see really demonstrates the value proposition for it. Sorry, I'm in stereo. And so with that, I'm just going to go through that with you. And I'll ask anybody else to do it. Oh, maybe that's me.
Did somebody else join in?
And just kind of do a little bit of a presentation with that. So I'm going to use my laptop and stand up with this microphone, and we'll be all set.
All right.
Yep. So I'm going to share. And we'll with that, what we're just talking about is we are looking at a software called Workday at this time, but I think this is relevant for pretty much any of the ERP systems that are a modern day system that will replace what we have now. And if you take a look, it's really poignant to take a look at this picture because it's actually the same street in Wausau, and if you look at the right, it's in the olden days where we are now with our current system, and then you're gradually moving into the modern era. So I think the picture in this really is kind of tells a story of where we're moving from and to. So we went from Edsels to looks like Toyota those Toyota F100s or something. So
I thought Kayenta was horse and buggy.
well, yeah, we were going to go with the Edsel. I think that's also appropriate. So just to kind of it's kind of hard to make finance funny, so we're trying to do that at the same time today. See how we do. He probably put me back in the.
I just wanted, I noticed an observation of,
Workday understands that ERP project goals for Marathon County. So we are looking at negotiating with a vendor called Workday at this time. But again, you really can fit in any modern technology system, and it's enterprise reporting P, I forget what P is for, ERP. Okay, Enterprise Resource Planning, sorry, I knew it when I started the thing. And what you're gonna take a look at it, and again, it improves business processes, takes advantage of the newest technology, and harnesses efficiencies that we don't have now by implementing technology and creating the current business processes we have and making them better. And then also gives access to data and to information. At this time, we really don't have dashboards or a way of really telling you on a more streamlined basis how things are going in the county. Benefits for Marathon County. These are actually created, and we're going to have better more clear information on the contracts and all that later. This is really educational to say, you know, what are we doing and how much is it going to cost and what are you getting out of it? So this is really just for your educational piece today. But taking a look at our actual budgeted funds, budgeted dollars for 2021, we're looking at technology simplification by going to a software solution that's in the cloud. So it's going to be consistent with the other Workday customers. It's going to also be updated on a timely basis. And it's also going to be secured in that system so that we don't have our own servers here to need to manage and keep up. You're looking at reduction of cost of ownership and reduction in the cost of business effectiveness. And they're looking at about $203,000, and that's when Workday goes through and takes a look at their clients that they're proposing their services to. They do a value proposition, and they go back a year later and try to calculate what the actual costs are. So based on our budgeted figures, they're saying about a 1 to 2% savings in payroll overall, which to us, based on our 2021 budget, would be about $203,000 a year. It also helps with the HR and finance transformation as you move towards this. Right now, we run on spreadsheets. If you had invested in Microsoft Excel, you'd be a billionaire by now because we've used every single resource in Excel that we can. This is going to save us that time, duplicate entry, a lot of that work. Employees don't have the power to make their own changes for their address. We have to do it for them. So it's going to be transformation in that one, which we haven't been able to develop a cost on yet. But the last one really is on your business effectiveness. Currently, the current process is manual with a paper process as part of our accounts payable process. And based on the non-capital, non-personnel operating costs that we have here at the county, there could be up to a $2.7 million savings. Workday has determined that on average, there's anywhere from a 3 to 5% process savings for their clients. Now, bear in mind that the cost of the software itself will be substantial, but we do want to tell you that while we go through this process and create efficiencies, there will be some ability for us to eliminate some of that additional cost we have now, which is really no value add. It's moving paper. It's emailing a spreadsheet to somebody else to enter somewhere. With that technology simplification, here's Kayenta. Kayenta is the current software that we have today, and wait for it. You'll understand what we're talking about in just a second. Kind of how we feel. Kayenta is alone by itself, and it doesn't really have an integration with a lot of other systems at this time. But what we have is all their systems that we do use currently, and the graphic here kind of shows you how they're not structured together. They don't work together. The cliff on which we have to jump off to get to the other ones is deeper in some areas than others. But here is a bunch of other things that we do use or want to use. We use a software named Paybud, which is built in 1991 by one of our data center gentlemen. Taleo, IntelliTime, Sage, Cognos, and ResourceX. That's kind of a good graphic on explaining why we feel that being an integrated software would be very, very helpful to us. There's also bottlenecks in separate systems, as we just showed in the graphic. Antiquated processes, like I said, we still have a paper process in place for one of our softwares or one of our accounting cycles. We support technology in very heavily in hardware and maintenance of our current financial software. Limited enablement. We don't have self-service for employees. Like I said, they can't even change their own address in the system. We have to do that through process. And so we are really looking at moving through and putting something new in place that will help us all. And this one actually, when we were going through this with some of the folks over at the IT department, government data breaches are becoming more and more occurrent. And in the case of governments, there's over 65,000 employee records that were hacked by not ours, but outside party. And the average cost they've estimated to, because of this, and this is from IBM, is $78 per person for all of those records that have been hacked. And one of the things that really hits home locally is that NTC was recently, their data was hijacked. And they had to start over, and actually some of our data center, our IT people went over to help them to get their systems started up again. And consequently, the really interesting thing about that is that they are also at this time moving towards this Workday product. Right now, they've started implementation of a new system, which is the same system, independent of what we were doing as well. So really need to focus on making sure that our data is secure. Technology is simpler with Workday, and I'm not going to go through a lot of this. It's just quotes from both the City of Baltimore and County of Placer, just kind of quoting how it's been helpful to them. HR and finance transformation, here we go. Paper forms and manual processes inhibit efficiency. And you say, oh, come on, Christy, it's not that bad. You can't have that many paper forms. Okay. Every one of these forms is a Marathon County form. Larry, the guy that built this, he went out to our website and was able to get all of our paper forms. This isn't fake. These are ours. This is what we do. We move paper around. They should all be eliminated when we go to a new system, but it's not someone else's. These are what we work with every day. And with that, we've got, now that's the happy part. So with that, we're going to, and again, we're looking at Workday, but you could pretty much put a lot of the modern ERP systems in here. And we are going to give you just a little video of Denver. They have a city and a county joint commission, and they've kind of are talking the same. They've gone through this process, so they have talked about. But increase insight to payroll and procurement, improve visibility into the finance and HR processes, and we refocus staff on strategic functions that directly benefit the county. So what are we going to do when we don't do paper? My employees can look at the vendor list to see if we're getting all of our discounts. We can look at HR to see if we're really hitting some of the targets that Molly and her staff have been wanting to do in regards to skill set, employment. Where are we missing out on opportunities to pick up people to really bring ourselves into a skill level that we really need and want here at the county. Business effectiveness. Can personnel and supply costs be controlled? Again, we had talked a little bit about that 24% of the county's fiscal expenditures are personnel service, 42 are operating costs, and you see it on the chart. That's actually from our budget. And they're going to try to maximize the impact for cost savings in both of those by efficiencies. And again, the software, the impact of purchasing the software and maintaining it is expensive, but we are trying to show you that there are some savings on the back end of it by creating efficiencies, security, and a general better system that moves us forward, not keeps us in the back. Transformation with Workday, again, just reduce cost of payroll, improve cost center accountability, reduce supplier spend, and increase insight into payroll and procurement. Again, there's some quotes from our folks in Florida and from Pierce County, Washington. Reduced risks. Here are some of the things that they're talking about that we have FMLA, FLASA, Affordable Care Act, and EEOC several of the federal government reporting agencies that we need to either A, make sure that we're maintaining and reporting appropriately, or keeping the information secure. Workday is the one we've chosen. That was reason because we believe they're the right partner to help us modernize our system. And these are some of the things that it helps you do. It's the Power of One. It brings things together. So right now, we really don't have an integrated system. And with this, we should be able to have the employee log in once and be able to get to all the access that they need, no matter what level of the organization they're at. 97% of customers give them a satisfied rating. And it helps do continuous innovation and delivers on time and on budget delivery. Just to let you know, Workday did provide us information on the people that they have that are customers, and we did reach out to some of their state customers in government space in Wisconsin. They do have MATC, Madison Technical College, and as I said, NTC has just started their they're moving towards Workday. They started in July of this year, and they should be done by June of next year. But you'll see Century Insurance and some other ones. Just to say, well, where are they? I've never heard of them. Well, they're kind of everywhere. Again, 660,000 employees in Wisconsin use Workday every day. And it provides security, cloud security, cybersecurity measures are in place, and it helps you prevent data loss and ensure that you have authentication of user access to the system as a whole. And with that, I'll just kind of finish up. The Workday cost model shows you just some of the things that will be in it. Here are some statistics that they have on how they're saving and being a provider of a modern system for the public sector. Some of the indicators I found interesting are 83% decrease in time to fill positions and a 60% reduction in the annual budget cycle time. Again, just shows you the value that they're providing and showing you that based on a single platform. And with that, if I can have your attention for 2 minutes more, I do want to show you a video, and it's from the City and County of Denver, and it's their HR director. And the reason I felt this was really important is because if you take a look in the video, you'll see some pictures of what their employees, the government employees, are doing, and it could have been taken here. It could have been taken in Marathon County. So I thought it was pretty relevant.
Karen Naparco, I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Human Resources for the City and County of
Oh, let's optimize it. I could unshare and then reshare. Okay. It's all right. All righty.
Well, the integration isn't so good.
Yeah. Maybe videos won't work with them, but we'll try.
Karen Naparco, I'm the Executive Director of the Office.
We can watch the link if we are having difficulty.
The link is in your packet, and it's on the website, so it should work because I did try it. But again, if you take a look at it, it's on that little Denver page. it's it's 2 minutes and like 1 second. So if you want to take a look at it, it really does just tell you the same story that we have. But some people like pictures and some people like video. So, and with that, I will send it.
So Christy, we are in the process of still choosing the vendor, or have we locked in a vendor?
Go ahead.
Well, and Christy and Molly are probably better to answer this question, but we've selected a vendor. We're in the process of contract negotiations. And for all of you that have negotiated contracts before, you know, until it's signed, it's still in negotiations.
And there are
And I think it's
there are
top of-
contractors and there are subcontractors with different components?
Correct.
And
My
that's part-
understanding is the contract is a couple hundred pages, and we have, to your point, not only the contract with Workday, but also the subcontractors, excuse me, that would help us implement it. Is that fair? Collaborative solutions.
So as we roll, once the contract is executed, can you walk through, we've started the discussion of needing to have some redundancy in staffing from the perspective of somebody working with Kayenta while somebody also works in entering data into Workday. So how are we in our planning process for that to make sure that we can continue to operate while we're coming up to speed, if you will? And what sort of demands will that, we were talking about potentially having dual employees doing things. Where are we in that process?
Actually, the CCITC is taking lead, and right now what we are going to do is be presented in August, I believe it is, with the final package, which will include software, consultants, integrations, and then also what we would call contractors, BAU contractors, business as usual, so that they can help us implement the software together. And so we're getting our estimates back to the CCITC, and they will be presenting it as a full package.
So in September,
I believe it'll be in August.
August?
Yep. So that's why we wanted today to kind of just give you a follow-up, you know, instead of hitting you at once with all this information, this is the reason why we're going forward with this. These are the types of things we expect to see once we start going into the integration and picking a new service. And this is what we hope to achieve when we're done.
So Christy and Molly, I would ask that maybe you work with IT, then, you know, what will we as policymakers be faced with? I think there's that issue of there is some potential that cost of bringing the system in. So if we could outline those costs and where that might impact the system, and you know, there are obviously potential problems and how we might troubleshoot those when you've got two systems, just give us an overview of, there are some additional costs, both implementation cost and long-term cost, if we could get those as best we can when we get that presentation. Other questions? Kurt, did you?
No, I think you outlined some of it. There's obviously going to be challenges and opportunities. There's obviously going to be challenges and opportunities. One of it is, like you said, redundancy of running two multiple systems while learning. However, there's also the opportunities to be able to reallocate potentially positions within the whole organization. So that we have consistency throughout, so. A new day and new opportunities.
Greg?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I see there's a lot of different organizations using this Workday. How long has this been around, or as far as,
I think since 2005-ish. It's an actually quite new, and they're as you can see from some of the listed people, They've gone into the government space, I think more in Washington instead, was it 2005? Thank you for fact check. And so they've really, I believe, are starting to hit the government side a little bit heavier at this time, at least in the state of Wisconsin with techs, and now they're coming up to the county city, but they have done that in other states, so we feel confident that they can see the city-county data center with the city of Wausau, the county of Marathon, and the data and the IT department, and help us integrate together. One of the costs that wasn't mentioned is that we are also going to try to consolidate some of our information, like we'll have a consolidated general ledger because both the city and the county follow the state master general ledger anyway. That's a standardized ledger that we use. So I think you'll find that we're able to eliminate some more additional work just simply by standardizing our own codes throughout the Workday system.
Thank you.
Along those lines, do we know if they've, one of the novelties that is, for instance, general transportation aids and the tracking and that, do they have experience with other counties in that area? It's
Not in Wisconsin, but we can ask because what we find is very similar is that every state has something of a similar nature. They just call it something different. And they will be working with the technical college on their state aids because they're going to be working with a full integration with them too, I
But
believe.
there's a difference, I think when you start getting into some of those novelty areas, so I would ask that we give some thought to how are we going to deal with some of those things that are narrow in scope but critical to our reimbursement. Do they have that capability when we're in essence, the one that they're cutting their teeth on in the state? Are they going to be able to integrate with the general transportation aids reporting process?
If I may, Mr. Chair, this is Administrator Leonard, and I haven't been, Christy, Jerry, and Molly certainly have been doing a great job on this project, but I'm staying informed, and this is my 30,000-foot view on reporting for highway. That's what you're talking about. There is not a single county in the state of Wisconsin that's really thrilled with any financial reporting system that they have to report to the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin's system to report to the state of Wisconsin isn't even overly well-liked. That's the CHEM system. The other vendor that kind of when we narrowed it down to the top two, we asked those specific questions, and this is my characterization of the responses that we got was that our team was more confident in the Workday solution and the staff behind it to solve those intricate issues than the other vendor at this point. So can I sit here and tell you that Workday has done it in the state of Wisconsin and we're 100% sure how they're going to do it for us? The answer is no. But of the systems that, you only get to choose from a system that exists. And this is the best system that our team was able to identify based on a multitude of criteria that we put in place. Fair characterization?
Supervisor Fisher here.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
So we at Nationwide, we utilize Workday for all of our HR system functions. So everything from time off to review policies during the year, and it works very well. It's very efficient. I have not used Nationwide or Workday in regards to their financial general ledger system, but based on what I've seen on their HR side, it's a good, solid product. I think it will do well for us. And simple things like Christy said, where an employee can't change their address. Like we shouldn't be having staff change other staff address. They need to be able to do that themselves for efficiency's sake. So I have experienced that product as a people leader, utilizing it for my staff and my staff using it. I'm very, happy with that system. It works very well. Christy, one thing you did have in your graphic there was a pretty huge savings based on reduced cost of payroll is that reduced cost of operating payroll, or more so not needing as many actual FTEs to run the process that then would be redistributed amongst the system?
To the most part, it would be B, but then two, I think some of the payroll costs that we have would be non-integration between, it's in redo and stuff, because we don't have integration to do enrollment and benefits, so we might miss them, and we either have to get money back or pay more money in because we missed a deduction code, or the person,
Okay.
the paperwork was sitting somewhere, and so I think it's both. It's in efficiencies
Thank you.
for that and people.
Kurt?
You know, one of the challenges I've set, and served on this board now, the end of this term, 16 years, and on the finance committee for various number of those years. One of the things that we've always struggled with is, you know, reports and where we're at from a budget versus actual. Are we saying now that with Workday, once it's fully implemented, we'll be able to get a report that this finance committee can look at as far as comparison from what was budgeted for the year versus what we're at as actual for various departments and/or the county as a whole? So I guess a very specific question is, we've never been able to, do forecasting as far as budget, sales tax, that type of thing, other than manual spreadsheets. And the question is, will Workday be able to provide us tools that will provide us reports that are usable for management?
I believe that they will be able to provide those, not only to the finance department, but would be able to send those to your own dashboard, depending on what you are at. So finance committee might have a dashboard that will provide you information that you need on a organization-wide level, maybe budget to actual, where departments such as Jamie's would see it on a more granular level under the information that she would need to be able to run her portion of the organization. So I believe once it's integrated, that will be one of our goals, is to make sure that people are getting the information they need on a timely basis.
In the For What It's Worth column, back in the 1970s, when I was on the county board the first time, we got those monthly reports with the status. And we've moved to automation, and we've taken a step back, and so I'm really encouraged by the fact that we'll be able to establish dashboards, have some accountability, make the priority-based budgeting process more meaningful, and there are a lot of value addeds that are associated with this. So I hope we get it set up right, and as a result, can make better decisions.
And one other add is that since this is the human resource, the dashboard can also provide you information that you would need with goals for employment too. And I don't mean to speak out of turn, but Molly, when looking at the demo, I think it's a powerful tool on both the financial side and the HR side for us. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that you have data from both sides of the house with one software as well.
Kurt?
Just one other question, and that was, the deputy administrator that was here for a short period of time went through a ERP system implementation at one of his previous employments. And so do we know what system that was that they implemented? And was that part of the evaluation process? Or was that program in the evaluation?
The software that was implemented was Tyler, and that was one of the other softwares that we looked at, and was one of our other top candidates when we were going through the evaluation.
Any other questions? Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that if you ask, there's, Jerry, I believe that the city is having a meeting of this nature today as well. So I don't want to feel that the IT department is not supporting this, but I believe that they also are working on this. So I wanted to let you know that we are working together with both the city and the IT department directly, so, too.
Any other questions?
One other question, and maybe it's more of a comment and a discussion with administration, is, we've looked at, this software, and there's multiple entities that we are, CCIT is a partner of, and we also have another entity, NCHC. So I don't know if there's been discussions. I know that they are looking at, they were implementing a new software system for their medical records, but I'm not sure if we've had discussions as to whether or not this would be utilized or where their system is.
I can let you know that I did raise that with the interim CEO, at least letting him know that this was the product that we'd selected. They do have an existing ERP system that, to your point, was only implemented a couple of years ago, so they're not in the market per se to update that system as of yet. That said, I do think one of the benefits of the Workday system, perhaps as opposed to some of the other vendors that we evaluated, is that I would infer, based on all the information we've received about Workday, that this would likely meet North Central Healthcare's needs should they be in the market to make that transition. Where I wouldn't be as confident, I can't say for sure that any of the other vendors wouldn't, but my sense is that I'm more confident with Workday meeting North Central's needs if they do indeed wish to go that route.
Thank you.
All right, then we look forward to an update next month. Thank you. Next, the American Rescue Plan update, review of schedule and activities for public engagement. Sarah, do you want to present where we are? I can. You've done a lot of the work, so. And we thank you for that. This is one of the better moves that we've made in county administration, is bringing on the capacity. No. You were supportive of it, and this expands our capability of doing outreach and building on the capabilities and talents of others.
The PowerPoint would be great. A press release went out earlier today announcing the 3 listening sessions. There's a copy of the press release in your packet. It went out to our media outlets so that we could hit the deadlines for publication for some of those early sessions happening as soon as next week. There's also a draft PowerPoint in your packet that outlines the education component for each one of those sessions. We felt it was really important to kind of set the stage for citizens who attend those sessions so that they can understand what the ARPA dollars can be spent for and kind of what the process looks like. And then I believe it's the second to last slide in that PowerPoint has some discussion questions that will then facilitate the conversation for citizen feedback. Those questions are also listed in the press release that went out, as well as an online feedback form that will go live on the county website tomorrow morning, where if folks are not able to attend one of the sessions, they can answer those questions via an online form that can then come back to this committee with that feedback.
So to just refresh everyone, this Thursday, county administration will be meeting with the Towns Association and rolling out, and basically talking to them about the fact that we're going through this process and look for opportunities to partner and collaborate. And then we will start the public hearings and Edgar on the 3rd of August, in this room on the 10th of August, and in Hatley at the Community Center on the 17th. And we've given the public until the 20th to fill out the forms. We looked at a lot of what the city did, and the questions that we are asking people to respond to is, what economic impacts have you witnessed as a result of the COVID pandemic? What would it look like to address these items? What does economic recovery look like to you? What opportunities is there to partner with other local municipalities to address these issues? And what criteria should be considered as we evaluate proposals for the use of funds? We've gone through the timeline of when things need to be spent and what the eligible activities are. And again, we're trying to stress that these are one-time dollars that shouldn't build our base because of concerns over levy limits. So I guess it's here as an educational item. Any thoughts on it? We just wanted to share it with you before we rolled it out. If there were desires to ask other questions or change things, please let us know. Any thoughts? Again, we modeled it a little bit after what the city did with their outreach that they began in June. We didn't join them at that time because of the concerns that we didn't know what the criteria would be, and that's a work in progress. We know that there are opportunities with the lost revenue that we are still exploring. But the intent would be to get the comments back here. And as you recall, the Finance Committee and the County Board approved setting up a ledger account where we put all of the ARPA dollars, but we haven't allocated that. It will require a County Board authorization. So one of the things that we're hoping to at the end of this is develop a plan that would allocate and potentially begin to create some transfers of where those funds could be for spending. We would do that this fall, but we will need to do that before we can spend those dollars going forward. So that's sort of the plan that we have going forward. So we would take the input from the public, we'll take the input from the feedback we get through the online, develop a plan, take it to the county board. I think we'll still work with Christie and Lance and administration to work on that process of how we would set up those transfers and what categories there are, but then we don't have to come back every time we want to spend money on something and seek that transfer. Does that make sense? All right. Sarah, thank you for all of your hard work on this. Broadband expansion update. I think what we are finding is that we are living in exciting times, ever-changing times. We have, to the best of my knowledge right now, 6 companies or 6 internet service providers looking to potentially submit grant applications to the Public Service Commission by 15 minutes ago. And Serenity, Country Wireless, LTD, Bug Tussle, Charter Communications or Spectrum, and then the WIN, they're running fiber up to Lincoln County to serve Lincoln County, but they're going to serve a few places along the way. And there may be others that are out there. We have, through the action that the county board has taken, pledged the remainder of the $250,000 that we've set aside for broadband expansion in the budget, pledging that to just under 63,000 to Serenity and 114,000-ish to Country Wireless. As we heard from Bug Tussle, they are interested in a potential conduit bond in discussions with us. Charter Communication is interested in both the PSC grant and then looking at the National Telecommunications and Information Administration funding that is due August 17th. They're submitting the same project to both. We've had some discussions and we look forward to working with any and all parties. Unfortunately, the Broadband Task Force did not have a quorum yesterday, so they couldn't meet. One of the things that they're looking at is adopting an approach similar to what Kewaunee County had and just being, creating that level playing field and working with all parties that want to come forward and set the conditions under which they would partner with them. But there's a lot going on right now in context of federal dollars flowing in, state dollars. There's $129 million of state dollars over the next 2 years that will be spent on broadband expansion, plus potentially additional funds in the federal infrastructure legislation. And one of the things that Kurt and I heard on Monday was that while the American Recovery Plan Act calls for 2 tranches, 2 payments to local units of government, there are some in the U.S. Senate that are looking at potentially not authorizing or rating that second payment to put it into the infrastructure bill. So we may need to take action to communicate to our legislators how important that funding is to us. But that's what we have from broadband expansion. Anything Kurt, Lance, or others would like to add? We generated 43 letters of support for Bug Tussle, 30, don't hold me to these, but approximately 33 for Country Wireless, 32 for Serenity, and 4 for Charter, plus resolutions. So I think we had a good outreach effort in support of those grant applications, and Kurt wrote letters of support for the WIN project. And again, Sarah and Tasha have been very helpful in coordinating the county's response. All right, we will move on. We will jump then to item operational functions. We'll discussion and possible action committee to forward to the county board for consideration. Committee evaluation and/or ranking of capital improvement program projects requests from various county departments and qualified external organizations presented by the Facilities and Capital Management Department for inclusion in the 2022 KIP project list. So is Terry on? You have in your packet
Not sure what he's talking.
the information. 3 pages of projects. Is there any overview that you'd like to share with us?
I'm not exactly sure what's in the, okay, there we go, that's what we have. Is this the latest one, do you know, Christie?
Yes, that was the one from yesterday.
Okay, basically what we did is, we talked earlier about the buckets that you guys would like to have these put in, so we added a few extra lines. So if you look, basically we have the same things we had in previous years, but we have the technology stuff. And then we added the maintenance / end of life / regulatory projects, and then the new request projects. So the new request stuff is the things that we discussed maybe we would rank, or not exactly sure how we would move forward with those. But the stuff that we put in the maintenance and end of life regulatory stuff, that is just what it states. So we added the lines to help, or the titles there, just to help identify your buckets a little better.
I'm sorry, Terry, I had it on the other page. Here's the maintenance end of life items that they're on page 2.
Terry, just a quick question. One of the things that you've got in there is playground replacement. In my understanding is that we're trying to replace playground equipment on a cycle. So why would that not be in the recurring projects like the county facility parking lot? I'm just asking that for clarification. It seems like we've been doing a similar amount for safety and upgrades. It's 200,000.
Where,
It's a 5-year plan.
Is that I'm not sure, I can't see it on.
yeah, well, I mean, it is, the playground replacement stuff is in the regulatory end-of-life maintenance category. So
Okay,
something that is reoccurring, so it is in the correct category.
And in the past, previous to the playgrounds being a 5-year program, they had updated some of the restrooms in the campgrounds on a 5-year program. So it wasn't a continuation, but we really had, at least in this case, Parks come up with a plan to target each of those for 5 years to get them all up to speed. And that's probably why it wasn't put in like parking lots. Because it was essentially a 5-year program to update everything.
And the restroom replacements are the second, is the line below that as well. So that's in the same category.
Thank you.
okay. Any, I'm sorry, let's focus on, if we can, on page 1 of the report, projects not funded by the KIP, which includes our solid waste, which is an enterprise account. And then we don't have the highways in those are budgeted.
We haven't started the budget process, so what will happen is that they will be part of their annual budget, which includes equipment cost, personnel cost, overhead costs. So I think we usually ask for those when they initiate the operating budget process.
And then we've got the technology and the IT. Any questions? I think we've heard those all came through our committee in the review process. Any questions on those?
Yeah, just a question on the HR, the financial, management solution, the 3.8 million. Is that a good number now, that we're understanding the true costs of the potential, or is there the implementation, a 3-year process of implementation of Workday?
You'll be getting a different number, or better number, I shouldn't say better, an actual number based on the software cost. And this, I believe, would also be some of the subscription cost. You'll be getting a better number in August, once we've got it finalized on all of the separate softwares, the consultants, and the final agreements with possibly Workday. It won't be that much different, I wouldn't suspect, but the detailed cost, and those are being worked on by IT. So we've been providing them information as needed to them and our current consultant, Barry Dunn, so that they can get the best estimate for you in August.
So we have identified those as the 3.8 million as capital cost. And then there's the licensing cost. So is there a one-time upfront purchase? And then we've got the license. And so we were looking at whether or not we could capitalize the licenses for the purposes, in the past, we would buy the software, and if we borrowed for it, we could move it above the levy line, if you will, and we can't do that with contracts unless we give some thoughtful consideration on how we structure that. So are we looking at the issue of, can we capitalize any of our software licensing costs that were historically one-time fixed costs that are now built in over multiple years?
We're certainly looking at that. The purpose for today was not to get you sound numbers or develop a funding strategy. It's to get the projects that have been approved by standing committees in front of you, and then to talk about what information, what additional information do you need through the ranking process for county administration to then move forward and build a budget for the board. So to Terry's point, kind of to start out, we sought to separate these into those kind of buckets, those categories, to try to address the discussion that this body has had that, excuse me, that we wanted to make sure that projects that needed to be done were moved forward, as opposed to simply being ranked and then as a function of overall budget dollars available, working our way down a list. I will say with the financial system, more direct response to your question, Kayenta was a similar situation. There was a upfront cost to implement. We do have an annual cost to maintain Kayenta. A similar thing will be true with Workday operationally. There will be some differences, of course, because Workday is cloud-based.
All right, again, on page 1, we've got the future projects. Are those, we're not anticipating that those will or will not be in 2022? The Forensic Science Center, Regional Forensics Center facility. Do we know if those are coming in?
Terry, I don't know if you want to talk through where we are with the Forensic Science Center, if you'd rather have me do that.
I'll let you do that one.
Okay. Well, in short, we have the chair of the task force in the room as well. You know, the county board, at the end of the day, we need to make a decision on whether or not we're moving forward with a regional forensic science center. We are moving forward with the facility design. We have some rough numbers that we just recently received from a consultant for construction. But the Regional Forensic Science Center, similar to the joint maintenance facility, the joint county facility for highway, and CPZ, those won't be moving forward unless there's specific action by the county board to move in that direction. But as Terry indicated in the form, they're on there for informational purposes, just to alert the board that these things are out there,
Greg?
discussed.
Thank you, John. As far as the Forensic Science Center, within the next couple weeks, we'll have a better idea of a location. Aspirus, where it states the two areas on there, Aspirus, and then for construction of our own building. And we are waiting till this Friday. There's a couple questions that need to be answered by Aspirus, I believe, to Terry. I don't know if he's heard anything that I didn't hear of, but we'll know better as far as if we're going to, be looking at Aspirus yet, or looking at a cost of building our own facility. And we're certainly looking at all the property that Marathon County does own, and if any of those could be utilized for that facility.
Okay. Any questions on anything else on that page?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, obviously, when we look at the new request projects, we look at potentially remodeling and renovation of the social services move, renovation of the old aquatic therapy pool, and some significant parking lot renovations. The question that, I think we're still wrestling with is we have various facilities throughout the county right now that, you know, we don't have a true direction for the highway department. We don't have a true direction for CPZ. We don't have, but we do know that we have facilities throughout that, and we were hoping to have some kind of, you know, master plan, if you will, for all of those facilities. But, you know, I don't know where we're at for that planning part. You know, the West Side Master Plan and the park, along with the Highway Department. You know, because I think the one thing that I do not want to do, as far as on behalf of the taxpayers of Marathon County, and that is spend, you know, eventually whatever that number may be, whether it be 6.7 million, you know, renovation for social services, and then come to find out, well, you know what, we'll leave them where we're at, or something of that nature, or remodeling the aquatic therapy pool at 3.8 million, and then not utilize that space. So a comprehensive look at all of those issues, I think, is what I was hoping to actually see, you know, before we started identifying projects such as this.
Where are we on the West Side Master Plan? Which gets into some of that.
We are about ready to release it. Jamie, is that fair to say? How close are we to releasing the RFP?
I'm working on it. I just need to get the input from Facilities and Capital Management and you.
Okay, so
So that's releasing the RFP. What's the deliverable date on that?
We haven't set one. We'll do that with the RFP. So, I mean, it's further along than what we thought, but we just haven't had the time to put it together before this. So.
And please don't take this wrong, I'm not trying to be critical of capacity, but I think, you know, before we start making major decisions on renovations of existing buildings, we need to have a total understanding of where we're going to be moving, or where we're going to house, you know, if we're going to have a joint CPZ, Parks and Rec, and Highway together, then that changes the whole projection of where certain other entities would be. So I need to start making decisions on renovation of facilities without having a total understanding of where all the departments and the space needs on top of that. Because I think one thing that has been shown by the pandemic is we potentially have the ability to utilize some potentials of works from home for certain individuals.
just to build on that, I think that's a great point, Mr. Chair. With respect to the future state as it relates to the West Side Master Plan, because certainly whether or not highway stays at that location would drive what that master plan is gonna look like. I will tell this body that we did get direction at the Infrastructure Committee to put forward an RFP that calls for highway and parks to not be at that location, so that's how we're proceeding in that respect. As it relates to the projects that are on this first page, the new requested projects, number one, the remodel of existing North Central Healthcare space to relocate social services. Again, the thought process there, and I appreciate what Chair Gibbs is bringing up about us laying out a more grand plan about where departments are moving. The plan with respect to that was driven by the renovation at North Central Healthcare and the smaller or different footprint that North Central Healthcare is going to be operating in. That regardless of whether social services moves to that location, there is space at that building space that is unoccupied. So what we did as a county was we identified what department's work most closely aligns to that of North Central Healthcare as well as the health department, which is also located on that campus. The logical, excuse me, the logical fit, I need to go get some water. The logical fit from a county department standpoint of social services. So that was the driver of that project before you, because again, regardless of the decision of Marathon County, there's space available. And if we relocate social services to that shared space on Lakeview Drive, we can look at divesting ourselves, whether directly through sale or lease or some other use of the social services property on Thomas Street. With respect to the aquatic therapy pool, again, as was contained in the project brief that was in your previous packet, with respect to that project, as you can see when you look outside the courthouse, the area formerly known as the mall looks dramatically different, and the next step in that downtown renovation is they have some pretty expansive plans. I don't know how detailed they are right now, but whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, or the City of Wausau, has plans for development, future development of the area that we currently occupy on River Drive. And one of the uses we have for River Drive is, oh, thank you, Christy. One of the areas that we have on River Drive is conference room space. So if the county is going to have conference room space to hold meetings and the like for our more than 750 employees as necessary, we needed a location to do that. And again, there is open space as a result of the renovation at North Central to relocate that conference room space from River Drive to the North Central Healthcare campus. But again, that comes at a cost. The benefit is the opportunity to look at that River Drive space differently, to repurpose that. But again, as Chair Gibbs pointed out, there's a couple other dominoes that need to fall, and that is we need to find a location for parks admin, for conservation planning and zoning, for UW Extension and veterans. Veterans actually, as part of the plan that Terry and his team has put together, will be relocated to the North Central Healthcare campus. So we have a number of those things figured out, but to your point, Chairman Gibbs, we can put together that high-level overview of what those facilities looks like, but some foundational decisions that from a policy perspective that the board needs to make is, are we going to fund the purchase, the acquisition and construction of a joint highway and parks location? Because as everyone knows, those things are expensive. But we have put in place, or put in process, I should say, a number of renovations and facility moves that will give the county a great deal of opportunity. Again, the move from social services, you move social services to that open space, you can direct us from a policy perspective what you want to do with that property, or how you would like to have us bring options available to you about what to do with that property.
So you had asked the question of what information do we need to make decisions. I think one of the things that I think it would be helpful is that which of these projects have been approved by the county board to date, which require authorization going forward, and what contingencies are there on the projects. And for instance, you look at the aquatic therapy pool to a conference center. That's contingent upon relocation of CPZ and the abandonment of River Drive. So it just would be nice for us to understand how some of these are intertwined, so that we don't lose sight of the fact that there are these contingencies, and if we vote no on one, it impacts a different one. What are your thoughts as a committee? Would that be helpful?
I think it'd be helpful. I think the other thing that, like you said, that one's contingent on the other. I think, there's some major decisions that have to be made And so you're right. I mean, the linkage between the various projects, because if you're not going to vacate social services, then the renovation down there, but then that begs the question, what is that area, or what is that facility going to be utilized for? Because heating space to heat space, and maintain buildings and building envelopes to maintain building envelopes, is not very cost effective.
Other, or Craig?
Thank you, John. This discussion here is kind of rechanneled our, the Forensic Science Center task force. When we initially started the task force, the aquatic pool was kind of on our list of areas for this to be located as far as using the building. After the discussion we had at HR Finance about the number of properties that we have, and we're not really sure what and how many properties we own, instead of purchasing a property or leasing a property to house this Forensic Science Center, we thought it might be best as we look at properties that we already own before we decide to go out and purchase a different property. Thank you.
Other thoughts on what you would like relative to, so your thought that would be then we would continue to discuss this at our August meetings, and then try to begin a process of ranking and prioritizing and recommendations for 2022 KIP? Or a multi-year KIP?
Mr. Chair, just from I think, helpful way to approach this is, what day do we need a final decision from the board, or from this committee rather, on the CIP project list to build the budget? And in speaking with Christy at your September meeting, if we can have a firm understanding of what it is that is going to be in that final funded move forward project list, we can determine how to fund them. But we need to know what's in that list. And I appreciate the discussion thus far. We can bring back some information on some of those questions in terms of what action has already been taken by the board, what contingencies exist for each of those projects. We can do that in August. It'll be iterative. A lot of the information will be probably arrived at within the meeting, but we'll have staff here to answer as many of those questions as we can.
One other thing that might be helpful when we look at some of the end-of-life maintenance projects is the amount of efficiencies that could be gained. We look at, a $9.6 million renovation of the steam HVAC construction and steam plant removal at NCHC Phase 3. Well, I know the efficiencies that we've got on that heating system there is very, very inefficient in comparison to what it would be. So, I think that really needs to be taken into consideration when we look at those projects, and put that in context, because there's some significant savings by replacing that system down there in operations long-term going forward to help offset some of that capital costs.
So I would also ask that when we get into the page 2 discussions, we've got over $10 million of North Central Healthcare projects. And is there any opportunity for us to recoup some of those expenses through savings to North Central Healthcare if we're making the investments? Are there, and for the other projects as well, are there opportunities if we invest in improvements at the jail or at the the HVAC in jail administration, are there savings that we will net because of those that may have been in the KIP request?
To your point, Mr. Chair, there is a section within the KIP request that talks about energy efficiency, cost saving, and return on investment sort of information. We can walk through those projects with you as part of that educational meeting at your next meeting and answer questions you have with the best information we do have as it relates to return on investment.
Just to get along with that comment, like your steam removal and things like that for North Central Healthcare Campus, to get the exact what is your savings going to be, that is another cost to get that number. We've asked the engineers and everybody, what is it? And it's like, well, if you give us this much money, we'll figure that exactly out. But, you're basically going from a 60% efficiency equipment to something that's going to be in the 98% efficient. But as far as actually getting you numbers for that, I'm not able to do that. And to get that from an engineer, they do charge for that. So I guess if you want that real number, we'll have to pay for that. So I guess that's something to consider when looking at this.
What other types of information do committee members want, or would you like to see for our August meetings leading up to the September approval? I think we've outlined a number of items. Are you comfortable with what we've outlined, which is what's been approved, what needs approval, what contingencies are there for the projects? I think we'll get into the discussions of funding source and potentially paybacks as it's outlined in the KIP request. Other items?
Supervisor Fisher here.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I think we're in really good shape. I know there's obviously certainly quite a bit more to discuss. However, for the fact that we've now identified these items and they're not all in the one list, and we are able to actually see what is required for what they actually mean at the end of the day, is substantially more efficient than the prior list. Not to say that the ranking system of any nature was a problem. It was just they were all meshed together and, sorted by dollar amount kind of thing. So I think we're already that much further ahead than we were before. And then the discussion of what really is, if the gross outlay is $9.6 million, what is the net of that post retirement of old equipment and efficiencies of the new equipment? So, we may, where are we out of pocket versus what are the actual savings going forward? Obviously, and any ROI discussion will be very important as well.
Thank you. Lance, one of the other things that would be helpful for us to understand this in perspective of others, what have we approved versus North Central Healthcare? We've gotten 2 borrowing issues approved. If we could just get an update on what else we've approved that has not yet been completed that may impact, that will impact our borrowing bonding capacity, so we have a understanding of what the potential borrowing might be for our capital projects. So that would be something Christie could pull together. Other thoughts? If not, we have a plan, so we will look to administration to get back to us. Then a resolution to amend the 2021 KIP for the 2022 rolling stock purchase of equipment and advance funding from the general fund working capital to fund the rolling stock order for delivery in 2022. Christie, that's
I put the June updates in there, and I can give you a brief update from the departments. I got some of them in today. I had a nice conversation with Ryan Weber at the Sheriff's Department, and he feels that he would be able to continue to order squads right now, next year, get them next year, pay for them next year. But the Highway Department response was that as of today, he spoke with a number of vendors last Thursday and this morning. We need to order in 2021, pay in 2022, and accept delivery in 22. Is our recommendation, we order most of the 22 rolling stock dependent in August to October of this year to receive it in 2022. That would be the highway. And the parks was of a similar nature. I have that from Jamie as well.
So toward that end, do we need a resolution to order? Can we encumber, is it order an encumbrance? From a legal perspective, because if we're encumbering dollars, have we encumbered funds by ordering it that we don't have money to cover it?
The answer is that you really, if you're gonna sign the contract or order it, you would wanna make sure that you have the funding available, and the only time I recall that we did not have 100% of the funding and started a project is the library roof repair. That got started last year, and we then said we would then make it a top priority of funding in 2021 to finish, and I think it was like a $400,000 amount. So that would be the only example where we did not, we went forward with a project knowing that we would need to make it a priority of funding for the year after to finish it.
So again, as an order and encumbrance upon the county, and does that then require us to have money in hand? I think that from an accounting perspective and other perspective, we probably need to answer that.
Mr. Chair, this is Administrator Leonard, and I don't have a financial rationale for this answer or a legal one, but I will just say it strikes me that if something is not budgeted, we shouldn't be ordering it. We need some form of authorization from the board to take that act to purchase that equipment. And the way we would do that is, if it were budgeted, we'd be operating within the budget, and if it's not, we have a resolution providing for a funding source, which in this instance would be the, general fund balance. But again,
We're not anticipating anybody's going to order anything before September, right?
well, they won't be ordering it until I tell them they can. So, I think that's a fair assumption. The question is, how do we, when can we, what's the form that the county board wants to take to essentially encumber those funds?
So as I see it, the options are we take to the county board in September the preliminary KIP. Can we, as part of that 2022, do we take it to the board for information?
The only solution I see that would work is to amend the 2021 CIP, advance the funding, and then reimburse ourselves, and put some language in it to reimburse ourselves because it's coming from the CIP fund, so it's a separate little fund, and then advance from general fund to the CIP fund so they can order, knowing that the funding has been authorized by the board, and then go through the 2022 CIP ranking, funding, And then part of the funding in 2022 would be to pay back the general fund for those pieces of equipment that will be delivered in 2022. And we wouldn't need to use the money if they only need to have it in 2022. So you're essentially underwriting a potential loan to the capital improvement fund. But if
But
you
you're
don't,
allowing the encumbrance
correct.
in the order. So can we draft a resolution using your best judgment as to what we need, reflecting what we've got on that, in the packet?
Yep. Yeah, we'll put our heads together and come up with something based on the information we have from the committee or from the departments, and possibly pulling the library roof resolution as well.
All right, can we do that should we do that at our August meeting, just to be done with it, because we've got enough going on with the budget later? So we'll deal with that resolution at our next meeting in August, and then we'll,
Or September.
or September.
Yep, yep.
When it can be crafted. Any other questions? Allison, Supervisor Leahy, or Fisher, you've been working on that subcommittee. Any thoughts?
Supervisor Fisher here.
Go ahead.
I think my main thought on that is, in order to be flexible enough to make sure our staff can get done what they are responsible to do, and if we are staying within the proper regulations, let's try to push to get what they need so they can make their purchases, knowing that, yes, vehicles at this time with rolling stock are difficult to manage because of the shortages of supplies in the supply chain, which will flatten out and be fine in future years. But that way we can just get them what they need, knowing that these are the burdens that are being put on the staff to make sure that we can get done what is we've tasked them to do. And that would be my main thought on that.
Okay. Any questions? Any other comments? If not, we look forward to seeing that in the next month and a half. Thank you. All right, policy issue discussion and committee determination, Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee work plan. It was a great idea. Intervening factors. I think what we probably want to do is go back and look at some of the timelines. I think that Chair Gibbs raised the questions of how important that long-term facilities plan is. And I know we're continuing to make progress on the capital improvement process, but we've had the vacancies with the deputy administrator. So maybe if we could just go back and revisit some of those timeframes and update it. Are there any items that, you know, again, they're capital improvement process, priority-based budgeting, performance standards for programs, long-term facilities plan, tax delinquent property process, and we've been, on that one, been meeting with the clerks in the treasurer's office. New position request process and ranking, evaluation of health insurance options, policy for sale, disposition of excess county property, you know, our role in the strategic plan, customer service expectations, the tax increment financing, pursue legislative recommendations. Those were all on their property insurance evaluation, renewable energy policy, updated procurement policies on there twice. But those were some of the items. Why don't we'll go back in and look at what's doable in light of the staff support and other competing interests, and bring that back at the August educational meeting. If that
Chair Robinson, Supervisor Fisher here.
Go ahead.
Just one update from the items on the list. In regards to the update for the employee healthcare coverage, the RFP had gone out, and I believe that we are still in the time window for receiving the bids and the quotes back. But that process is currently underway, and hope to get some good results out of that here in the next few weeks.
Okay. So maybe what we can do is take a look at that and update, we have a column for updates as to where we are as well. So thank you for that update. And anything else on that? If not, our next meeting is on August 10th. We'll try to, we're going to have to limit ourselves to an hour and a half, because at 5:30 we have the hearing on the ARPA. Or on the 10th, I'm sorry, so 2 hours, yeah, 3:30. Well, from 3:30 to 5:30 for finance. And where are we, when do we need to look at positions? So we'll be looking at the new position requests at that meeting, so we'll have a full agenda, and we'll just need to be sensitive to what we need to get done, and perhaps defer other items to stay within that 2-hour window, and then we'll have that hearing. So any other announcements? Any other announcements?
Sure. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
That's scary. I keep hearing the long-term facilities plan, and I can't help but to feel that you guys are looking to me for something here. So I'm looking for some direction, I guess. Are you looking for me, or are you? I mean, do you want us to come up with something? Are you
Terry,
looking for a
this is
study?
Lance. I will sit down with you. We'll schedule something yet this week to talk on that specific issue.
So administration will meet on that issue. Anything else? If not, what are your desires relative to item 8? Moved by Supervisor McEwen, seconded by Chair Gibbs. All those in favor of adjournment will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you. She is good. It was not a